Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Building Business with Builders webinar. This is a Moti-Vitality member exclusive, and we are absolutely thrilled to have all of you join us for this presentation, as well as the other Moti-Vitality membership benefits that you receive. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us. In fact, anybody that has ever seen one of my presentations before, you know that I start all of my presentations off this way by saying thank you. It really does mean a ton to me that you have taken your time to sit and listen and learn here. And it's my goal with every presentation that I give to make sure that the information that I give to you is at least as valuable as the time that you're giving to me. So on behalf of myself and Moti-Vitality team, I really do appreciate it a lot, and I'm honored to have you join us, so thank you very much. I do want to mention a couple things that we have coming up before we get started here, just very quickly. First off, every Thursday morning, for those of you that are not aware or haven't had an opportunity, every Thursday morning at 8:30 Eastern, we do what we call our MV Pro call. It's a 30-minute call from 8:30 to 9 o'clock Eastern, where we have sales professionals from all over the country log on to the conference call. And we don't talk product and we don't talk companies. All we do is talk water treatment, sales, and we talk about the things that all of us, regardless of which product or manufacturer we're representing, we talk about things that all of us run into in the field. I'd love to have you join us on those conversations. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the new certification program and how it works and what's changed about it and why you might be interested in looking into it, even if you have certification. But there's a lot of questions that a lot of people have about it, and I had a very long, very thorough conversation with Dr. Tanya Lubner from the Water Quality Association yesterday, which I also recorded, and we'll put that in podcast form. But we're going to talk tomorrow about the MEP, the new certification program. We also we have next month already, we're going to talk about organizing or earning, if you don't already have one, protected territories. That is going to be the member exclusive webinar that we have coming up next month, so watch for that. And then we have a live all-day sales essentials coming up in Wisconsin, so take a look at motivitality.com. The last thing I want to mention to you is that we have, those of you that are on this webinar, this is only one of the things that we offer. There are so many tools on motivitality.com very specifically designed for the water treatment professional, and love to have you check those out. If there's something that you're looking for that is not on the site, please let us know. Odds are we have it or can get it. We work with dealers all over the country. We have years and years and years worth of material very specific to the industry. So please take advantage of your membership. Don't just let it sit there. I'm seeing one chat. Somebody is saying that they're hearing me sporadically. Can everybody else hear me okay? If there's a problem, please let me know. I want you guys to be able to hear this as we go through it. Okay, we'll move forward. Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is the different types of builders that we might run into out there. We're going to talk about how to approach them, what to say to them. We're going to talk about different incentive programs that you might use. I'm going to share with you a lot of the experiences that I had working with different builders. I think it's important to understand as we delve into this that this is my experience. So it doesn't mean that it's absolute and gospel truth. And in fact, you may have had different experiences than what I've had. I've found these experiences to be fairly consistent across the country. I mean, we've been working with dealers for the last 7 years across the country, and I've found this to be the case in most places. The things that we talk about, and we're going to talk about incentive programs, and not all of the incentive programs have to do with giving them a kickback. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to go through a builder agreement, a sample builder agreement, and kind of show you how I put together some builder agreements and why I put them together to make it official, these relationships. I mean, you can do it on a handshake, and sometimes with smaller builders and smaller companies, that makes sense, but to have a document that protects you and also assures them on what they're going to get out of it is kind of nice too. I think it can add a credibility to your company if you have something like that in place. And I am making some assumptions as we go through this because of our time and the energy. I'm assuming that you know where your houses and where your developments are in your territory, in your area. Now, I mean, that's a different class. If you don't know how to find them, those are different challenges. It's really a lot of times pretty easy if you are out there working in your territory and you're really knowing where everything is. You can pull building permits, but you really should. That should be the first thing that you do if you have an area, is get to know it. Know where these builders are building, know what's out there. I'm also going to assume that you have an idea of what they're already doing in the house. On some of them, what are they putting in? Are they already working with somebody? Do they have a stock piece of equipment? If you don't know that one, then you can ask that and find that out. And we will talk about that a little bit more. And I'm going to assume that you're organized enough to follow through on a plan. And that becomes critical because, and I think I have to say that from the very get-go, nothing will ruin forever a relationship with a builder, or frankly anybody else that you're trying to build a relationship with, than to promise them that you're going to do something, no matter how minor, and not follow through with it. So you need to be organized enough to be able to follow through on a plan. That means that if you tell them you're going to bring them a brochure or stop by next week and talk to them about something, you got to do it. You have to consider that a priority, and you've got to be organized enough. You need to use some sort of a contact manager or a calendar management program that will allow you to complete those promises as promised, as advertised. So those of you that have seen my presentations, you've seen this sales secret before. It is the key to pretty much everything that I teach in terms of sales. If you want to know my closing technique, if you want to know my how to set appointments, if you want to know any of that stuff, then really this is the secret. This is the basis of it all. And it's simply give more than you take. You should never have a problem. If you are concerned about your price, you think your price is too high, you're intimidated by your price, let's say you're a sales professional and you're constantly going to the owner saying, we're priced out of the market, we're too high here, I can't compete. There are too many people out there selling stuff for less. Well, if you want to be an economy dealer, that means that if you want to sell on price, then fine, sell on price. But you can't be both. You cannot be a quality product dealer and sell on price. If your product is a little more expensive, if it's a higher price, then really the secret to selling it, to closing it, is to make sure that you're offering more than what you're asking for. And that is not always, in fact, it's rarely tangibles, meaning that your softener by itself is not worth whatever you're asking for. I don't care how much it is. It's just not worth what you're asking for it. It's the intangibles that go with it. And that's really, really, really critical when it comes to building relationships with people out there that are going to help give you referrals, like builders. Okay, you have to give more than you take. So on this first screen, and I put something that I rarely put when I put this slide up. I put a but. And that is because you can't be taken advantage of. So when I first went out in sales, there were some builders out there. And man, it made perfect sense to me to get a system in every builder's model house and get it in their house. And I was out there looking for it. And what I discovered was
What? You'll give me a free softener to put in my house? You'll install one for free? Yeah, we'll do it. Let's meet with it. And they tell you that, yeah, we're going to give you tons of referrals. Yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And um, you guys can see that participants box. I'm seeing that. Okay. I guess, can you see my chat box as well? I'm getting that too. So, um, just great. Okay. Let me move that out of the way. Somebody just mentioned to me that it was covering the screen. Sorry about that. That should be a little bit better. Anyway, I went out there and um, you know, I'd put these builders in, or put these systems in these builders' houses for free, and they'd promise me, yeah, you're going to get so many referrals. Yeah, we'll definitely do this. And then what ended up happening is I put this equipment in there, convinced the owner, you know, hey, you know, let me, you know, this builder says he's going to give me all these great referrals. It's going to be really good. Can we put a softener in his house, and he's going to give me tons of referrals? And the owner let me do it. And then 3 months later, when I haven't gotten any referrals and there's this expensive piece of equipment in their house and the builder's not returning my phone calls, and I know they're there at their house because I see their truck there, and I go to knock on the door and they don't come to the door and they won't answer. And I mean, after getting burned a couple times, I realized, you know, I actually have something of real value to offer to them. And that's when the way I started working with builders changed quite a bit, was when I realized, yeah, it would be awesome if I got all of their referrals. That would be way cool. And there's sometimes that, you know, in my territory, I just didn't have a lot of new construction. And so and I'm going to talk to you about one of the builders that I worked with here in a little bit, but there was one that built about 20 houses in my territory a year, and that was 20% of the new houses in my territory. And he, when I first met him, basically told me to stop leaving literature at his house and at his houses, and to stop bugging his people, and that he had his plumber put stuff in, and you know, he wasn't going to use us. He was pretty nice about it, but man, that was 20% of the business. And so you know, I had to figure out something of value to give to him. I wanted those sales. I wanted those leads. I wanted those referrals, but I needed to find something of value to give to him, something that his plumber wasn't giving. And so uh, I do believe that when it comes to working with builders, that we can help them. We have something of value to give them, but we can't be taken advantage of, because yeah, they have something of value to give to us, but we have something of real value to give to them as well. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about in that approach here, is to make sure that they understand that it's going to benefit them. It's going to help them sell houses, and it's going to help them get referrals if they build this relationship with you. All right, so let's talk about the builder types, the different types of builders that we run into here. And by the way, I don't want this to be the lecture hour. I do really, if you have a question or you have a thought, chat it up there, and let me, you know, we can either unmute you, or you can unmute yourself if you have a question or a thought. Don't worry about, you don't necessarily have to just sit there and have this as the lecture hour. I like to have discussions because there's a lot of experience in the field out there that you know, even more than I have. So I'm just kind of facilitating this and putting together some stuff. So feel free to pop in if you have a comment or a question. All right, so the builders that we talk to, we've got the national builders, and these are the ones that do lots of homes. They're the Pulte homes. They're the ones that are building pretty much nationwide. There are, you know, if you do a Google search on national builder, and then you'll see some of those. These are the gigantic ones. They're almost corporate, you know, and whoever Pulte is, the owner of Pulte, my guess is he has not actually picked up a hammer on his own for a really, really long time. That's my guess. I want to remind you about your camera. You don't, some of you have accidentally hit your cameras, I've noticed. So make sure that your camera's turned off because we can see you at home. So the national builder, they're the ones doing lots and lots and lots of houses, and that builder himself is probably, you're probably not going to get in there. And the thing with those, I mean, like Pulte Homes, if you know Mr. Pulte or Miss Pulte or whoever Pulte is, wow, that's impressive, because that person is probably not out there in their homes nationwide. Regional builders are kind of close to that. There's still lots and lots of homes, but they tend to be more localized. So, I mean, we have a couple here in Michigan, a couple regional builders that build, 100, 150 homes a year, but they're pretty much only here in Michigan. They're pretty regional. And then you have my favorite ones, and this is what I'm going to really focus the most on today, are the custom builders. These are the ones that build 10 to 20 homes a year, maybe a little less, maybe a couple more, but these are the ones that actually are willing to go out there. You'll run across them sometimes in the house, because they're going through. I think of the guy who built my house, and when I think about this, and I remember swinging by one day, and he actually, my actual builder, even though he had a crew and he had roofers and people who did landscaping and poured the foundation and did the electrical and all of that stuff. He worked with all those individuals. I walked in one day and he had a hammer and he was installing my wood floor in my kitchen. And so they're still willing to get their hands dirty. They're willing to get out there and actually do the work. They're actually doing some building still. You may actually meet with the builder. I mean, even if you have somebody build a Pulte house for you, for example, you probably got it out of a catalog, got the blueprint out of a selection of a catalog, and you probably dealt with a salesperson or a general manager or general contractor, a representative. It was not the builder themselves. So the national builders, the builders aren't involved, like I said. These are mass-produced houses. You can go and look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of houses that they build, and they may have a little different face, but the blueprints they came from a catalog of blueprints. They're mass-produced. They've got huge crews it is kind of impressive when you drive through a subdivision that has one of these these national huge home builders in there. It is kind of impressive to see how quickly they put these homes up. And I mean, it's almost like an assembly line. The crews jump from one to another, and it's pretty streamlined, the process of getting the permits and all of that stuff. The thing with the national builders, though, is they likely have national accounts. So you as a dealer, as a local dealer, it's going to be a lot more challenging. Everything has to go up through corporate because they keep it the same pretty much across the board, across the country. So if you have a national product, the manufacturer might be more apt to put it in, but the thing is, they also don't want problems with stuff, okay? Because they do, and this is universal with all builders, no matter what size. They don't want problems. And so the reality is that if there's a product that they can leave to the homeowner to purchase after the sale of the house, that does not impact the house, they are more likely to do that. If they have a national product, or if they do put a softener or say, a conditioner in of some type, it's probably going to be one that they are getting at a much, much reduced price. It's probably going to be an inexpensive unit, and one that they don't have to deal with a salesperson really at all on. They call somewhere up and order it and put it in because they've got warehouses full of the things that they put in. They put the same faucets in, they put the same lighting in, they put the same shower heads in. And that's not to say that customers cannot pick out of a catalog and upgrade. People can opt out of those things where they can upgrade those things, but there is generally a catalog that a homeowner will go through. So basically what the homeowner does when they decide to build one of these houses is they will go meet with a salesperson, and there will be usually one salesperson for a development, or maybe a couple depending on the size of the developments, but they will go in and they will sit down with a salesperson. That salesperson's office is usually in the model home, and it's somewhere at the beginning of, at the somewhere near the beginning of the development, and there'll be an office in there, and the salesperson will sit down with the potential home buyers, and they will pull out catalogs, and they'll say, okay, what blueprint do you want? What size house do you want? What kind of doors do you want? What kind of windows do you want? What do you want in your landscaping? What do you want? What do you want this house to look like? Do you want tile? Do you want carpet? And they will have a catalog. And a lot of times in that catalog, there will be subcategories, so good, better, best categories. So they'll look at carpet and they'll say, okay, let's pick the color, but also let's pick the type of carpet that you put in there. And so the houses, everything is picked out from the beginning by the salesperson. And this is the important thing, because when it comes time to working with national builders, you're not going to really work with the builder. You need to develop a relationship with the salesperson. That's who, and this goes for the regional builders as well, is it's not the builder that you're going to develop that relationship with. It's going to be the salesperson. And you may have, Pulte Homes, for example, has thousands of homes across the country. And even within your region, you may have, several Pulte developments. And in those Pulte developments, there may be several salespeople, and you have to develop the relationship with those salespeople. And that you go in, and that relationship is built much the same way it is with the builders. Although there's a couple things to take into consideration. If the development or the management group of this development has a policy against outside referrals, you got to be careful. You don't want to get that salesperson in trouble. The other thing about that is they're in sales, and they may not be educated. A lot of salespeople don't know what they're selling, and they've been, a lot of times. I went into a house just recently with somebody that we had hired and we were training, and we walked in and talked to. And this is a development that's being built where there's a lot of softeners in this development, lots and lots and lots of them. The builder currently was not installing softeners, but almost everybody in this development, it is city water, but about 20 grains of hardness. And we went into the model home, and man, you could see the calcium on the faucets, and it was just really built up, because 20 grains of hardness does that pretty quick. And we asked the salesperson in there, what they recommended for water treatment, and the salesperson proceeded to tell us that they told everybody that came through they didn't need a water softener because it was city water. They didn't need it. It was really, really good water. And wow, that brings us to the point where we're looking at, you can't tell, especially salespeople, but really anybody. The instinct is to go, have you looked at what you're selling? Do you realize the disservice that you're doing for your customers by telling them that they don't need water, that it's going to be good? They're going to be furious with you in 6 months. I mean, go look at the faucet, and how many sales is it costing them to see that kitchen faucet all calcified up like that with 20 grains of hardness? And if they talk to anybody, which some people do, there's online reviews and there's referrals. If they talk to anybody, they're going to tell them, yeah, they said we didn't need a softener, but we do. We absolutely do. And that's not going to be very good for the salesperson. But so you got to finesse that. You can't just go in there and tell them they're wrong, but you absolutely have to educate them in some way. So, I mean, the salesperson, that's who you have to develop the relationship with and talk to. If they've been there at any length of time, and unfortunately in sales, there's a lot of turnover sometimes in sales, especially if somebody's not any good at it, and so maybe they need to be there for 6 months to realize that people do need a softener. But if you can get in there with that salesperson and start educating them and talking to them. Now, on the national accounts, you're more likely going to run into, if they have a softener that they offer at all, or a drinking water system. It's going to be already in their catalog, and you're going to have to jump through tons of national corporate loops to get your system added into that. Now, that's not always the case, but be prepared for that. Honestly, and I can tell you that for me, I didn't find it was worth the effort, because even if you do get your system in there, into these huge national accounts, even if you do get your system in there and in their catalog as part of their stock product, they want it discounted so much because of the volume, because of the quantity, and I didn't make any money. Now, I did have success and have had success giving $50 for a referral to a salesperson. So, helping them recognize that it's a better quality system than that little box store, throwaway thing that was in the catalog, the inexpensive thing. If I developed a relationship with a salesperson who sold these homes, then I could give them $50 or whatever for a referral. But you got to be careful not to get that salesperson in trouble, because sometimes there's policies against them doing that, or if somebody finds out that they're recommending something that's not in the catalog, then essentially they're taking money from that company, right? They're taking away from the profit margin, no matter how small it might be. So you don't want to get yourself in a position where you're having a salesperson break policy, and that's going to cost them their job. Or talk directly to the homeowner. The homeowner is always better. The problem with these big national accounts is there's a lot of spec homes. They're rarely custom built homes, and so they will build these shells. They'll build a shell, and it will be a spec home, and then the customer will purchase the home when they're about 75% of the way through. So it's hard to get in touch with the homeowner on those. If you are going to reach a homeowner, your best time is to get out there and canvass those developments and be out there when the house is almost done. That gets a little more difficult in your gated communities. A lot of you are working in areas of the country where you have gated communities. That gets a little more challenging, I recognize. And so really your only options at that point are to to try and develop that relationship with the salesperson that at least allows you to get out there and visit. So a gated community is going to be a little more challenging in terms of actually contacting directly the homeowner, because on those accounts you don't see the homeowner's name until a lot of times they've moved in a month or two after, even if you're pulling those lists that have the home closings. So that can be a little bit more of a challenge. Your salesperson, that's who you need to talk to. That's who you got to focus on the national builders. The biggest thing I want to mention to you here is don't trash the competition, okay? So let's say they're putting a little box store throwaway softener in there. Don't go in there and trash it out and start talking to the salesperson about what a piece of crap that is. And don't even talk to the competitor. Oh, that builder's grade thing, that's going to break in a year, blah, blah, blah. You're going to make a huge enemy that probably has a lot more resources than you do. And if you're trashing out the products that they have in their home, then they're going to make an effort to keep you out of their houses. Okay? They don't want you talking bad about their product at all, regardless of what's in there. Regional builders have a lot of similarities to the national builders, but you can get in. The biggest thing with the regional builder, you actually do have an opportunity to actually talk to somebody higher up that can make a decision here. And what I've had success doing with some of the regional builders, we've done this here in Michigan with a couple clients, and I've done it in Minnesota and a couple other places with these regional builders. A lot of times they will also have a catalog. They set it up much the same way the much larger builders do. They'll have a catalog of stuff, but they're willing to, because it's not as corporate, it's not as big, it's not this national humongous account. Sometimes you can offer a piece of equipment in as an upgrade. So basically, here's how it works. Let's say that they are including let's say it's a Kenmore, or a Sears, or something, a little GE that they get from Home Depot or whatever, okay? let's say they're including that, that's what they normally sell. Well, you can go in there and say, look, I understand that's your builder's grade, that's the standard softener. Do you have an interest in, you might be able to talk to them about upgrading them. And that happens a lot. When you think about the other products they have in the house, a faucet, okay, there is a builder's grade faucet that they will put in. It's a stock kitchen faucet, it's a stock shower head, but a lot of times that homeowner will upgrade to a much better quality. Maybe they have the standard, the stock that comes standard is Formica countertops, but they upgrade to granite. Okay, so that's kind of the same way you would set up your equipment. Is look, I realize that you have your standard stuff. What if we offered this as an upgrade? And you can put together a program like that. Now, what's kind of cool about that is when you walk in their model houses, when you go into the model, they have the really nice light systems. They have the beautiful doors and the trim and the upgraded shower heads and the shower doors and the granite countertops. They have all of that installed in this house because those are the really awesome, beautiful things. And that's what they want people to see when those people walk into the model. And so if you can put together a program for them where you can install your softener, your piece of equipment down in the basement and have it as an upgrade. In fact, when you walk through, you'll see little plaques on things. Granite countertops available as upgrade. Shower head by such and such available as an upgrade. You will sometimes see little plaques, and if you have a little plaque like that next to your softener, and maybe with a brochure or some information on it, I mean, that's awesome. Now, if you get this system, if you're able to build a relationship where you can put this softener in a basement or in a garage, and I just learned this. I was working with a company in Texas last week, and I had to keep correcting myself. They don't have basements; they're all in the garage. So I know that. But if you have a basement or a garage where you can put this in the model home, make sure it looks beautiful. Do not just put this thing in there and neglect it. Make sure it looks absolutely beautiful. In fact, I've seen some people that take flowers and put it next to it, and they will build a little light on it, and shine the light on it along with a nice table with literature on it. And the thing that I want to encourage you here on is don't neglect the drinking water system. In fact, think about this. Okay, why is it, and this is just one theory, you got these really, really, really rich people, the people that have tons and tons of money. They have their Mercedes, and they definitely have upgraded to the granite countertops, and they have all these beautiful pieces of art. But then they've got the cheapest softener. They got the Bosch dishwashers and just a really, really nice appliances. And they got the cheapest softener installed to protect it all. That's always seemed odd to me, and I happen to think that one theory is that, my theory, one reason for that is a softener is not something they can show off. It gets tucked in a closet or in a garage somewhere or in a basement. Nobody can see it, so it doesn't get shown off. On the other hand, there's most of the manufacturers that are out there that have reverse osmosis systems, drinking water systems, have some really, really nice faucets that will match pretty much anything the builder can put in. So a nice faucet, a nice looking faucet can be shown off. That's something that people do see. They see that so to appeal to somebody who's coming in and doing all these upgrades, to be able to put that in, install a reverse osmosis system in. A lot of these places, a lot of these model homes offer bottled water. They have, when people come in and walk through the house, they'll give them little bottles of water. They could get their purified water right from that tap, right from that reverse osmosis system that's installed in that home, to show that they could have that right there. And by the way, even if somebody thinks that they don't need a softener in there, remember 70% of the people in this country are buying bottled water as an alternative to their drinking water. Only 10% are buying water softeners. This is according to year after year after year after year Water Quality Association's statistics. So people are more interested in that drinking water system than they are the water softener. So don't only assume that building this relationship with the builders is going to be with the softener. In fact, you're going to appeal to their customers a lot more with the drinking water side of it. So what do builders need? Well, they want to sell their house and they don't want it to look bad. What they need this model house to be pristine and crystal clear, because when somebody walks into this home, they need it to look beautiful. So it starts right on the outside. If you're in an area that has a lot of iron in the water, they do not want a potential home buyer to drive in and consider buying in this development, and they don't want to see all these houses that are already there with iron staining all over the side of their houses. And you guys have seen that, some of you that have iron in your areas. You drive out there and the landscaping sprayed up on the house and it just looks horrible. So if you can fix that, if you can put something like that in there to help keep that iron off the side of the house and from staining up, that helps them build and sell houses. That will help them, and that's what they want to do. They want to sell houses. And even if you don't have an iron problem, like I think about that one I went into, they had that faucet that was all caked up. If a homeowner sees that, and then that's supposed to be the best of the best, the model house, it's going to turn them away. They're going to be turned off by that. Oh, by the way, I want to mention here, when you're working with a salesperson on this, salespeople, a lot of times, they don't want to talk about this stuff because they don't know anything about it. That goes with the realtors too, and that ties hand in hand. And you can get into some of these houses with the realtors, and that's a whole different class, is working with the realtors. But you got to make sure that when you put this thing in there, you have this salesperson in this model home, or you have the softener installed in this model home as an upgrade. You got to make sure that the salesperson understands what it is. You don't want them to avoid it, and you absolutely don't. Homeowners, a lot of times, they're afraid of maintenance. They don't necessarily want to put something extra in. A lot of people, especially if they've never had experience with a softener, you have to put salt in the thing all the time. Maybe the only thing they remember is the softener they had when they were a kid, and they have bad memories of carrying salt and having to load it up, when they were a kid. So you got to make sure that the salesperson understands the talking points and the benefits of that water conditioner. But regardless, you need to have that softener in there to help protect those faucets. And when you explain that to the builder, look, it's going to help. It's going to save you on cleaning costs. It's going to make it look really good when they come in. It's going to protect all this stuff. It's going to look really, really, really good. And if you do it as an upgrade, then there are incentives. When we talk about incentives here in a second, you can actually put together an incentive program where they get to keep that softener that you put in there on consignment, get to keep it for free. Prepare to talk discounts. And I'm huge on price integrity. I believe very strongly in price integrity. I think when you work on referrals, you have to have that. But what I found is that builders, they do want some builder discounts, and they get builder discounts they're used to that. That's their culture. When they go in and buy lumber from a lumber shop, a lumber mill, they get discounts because they're a builder. They buy paint from Sherwin-Williams. They get discounts. They have a number that they give them, and they get a contractor's discount. That's pretty much across the board. It happens. Be prepared. My recommendation is that you set that up, though, where it works as either a credit toward equipment or some sort of a rebate where they get a rebate back. So the price stays the same, and then you give them a rebate back. Set it up somewhere where you can maintain price integrity. That's pretty important. Particularly if, a lot of times homeowners will see if the homeowner is going to see the paperwork, to see that, then I mean, you don't want that discounted price being seen out there, especially if you work on referral, if you work with a lot of referrals. So you are mostly going to be dealing with the salesperson or a subordinate in these instances, though. Okay, so let's move on to the custom builders, because this is where you're going to have your greatest success. This is where you're really going to have a lot of your referrals. I mean, I think back when I was in sales and the number of units that I did and how many of them came from builders that would just include it in the cost of the house. For some of them, they didn't want to mess with it, but they gave my number all the time. Some of them, they gave me the homeowner's number, and I contacted the homeowner. But let's talk about a couple things here. First off, you have to be a long-term goal. When anybody, think about all the people that builders work with, everything that goes into a house, okay? Everything from gutters to windows to carpet to plumbing to appliances, all of that stuff. So every salesperson that starts selling something, every single one of them that starts selling something, starts thinking, builders, we got to get in with the builders. We got to do that. We got to get in there and build these relationships with builders. And so builders are constantly bombarded with people coming to them saying, sell my stuff, put my stuff in your house. What do I have to do to get you to put my stuff in the house? They're not going to give you the time of day until they know that you're there long term, because I can tell you, when you do get that relationship, your number is probably getting programmed in that builder's phone. And because when there's a problem, that's what the builders are experts at, is when there's a problem. Builders do not like getting phone calls from homeowners or from inspectors or from somebody else with problems. There are enough problems. Even if you're doing 10 to 20 homes a year, you're running like crazy. You are going all over the place wearing a billion different hats, and the last thing you want is a phone call from a homeowner that you've already closed on that says, hey, my softener is not working. If that happens, that builder's going to pick up the phone. They've got softener in their phone, programmed in their phone, and it's probably your cell phone number, and it's going to ring in the evening or on a Sunday night because that's when the builder got called. And so the builder picks up that phone and they immediately dial you. And if you don't work there anymore, if you don't work at that company anymore, then they're never going to use your company again. Excuse me. Wow, sneeze. They're never going to use that company again. And that scenario, by the way, has happened with that builder. If they've been around any time at all, that scenario has happened with that builder lots of times, not necessarily with water treatment, but with other thank you, Jen. It's happened not necessarily with water treatment, but it's happened with other products or other services. And that the builder's skeptical about you. You just came in this business. They just met you. And they don't expect you to be there, particularly if your company has had a lot of turnover with salespeople in the past. They don't expect you to be there. There's a reason they use their plumber to put in softeners, or that they don't mess with it at all. And that's because their plumber's been with them for 30 years. He's the guy who's plumbed their houses, and he's done it. And again, that softener is just one more thing that can go wrong. So you have to be there long term. You have to be there. You have to be willing to be there to show them that it's a long-term goal. You're not going to just walk up to that builder as a brand new person and be able to have a realistic expectation that they're going to trust you. You have to be willing to give to them, and that means thinking ahead of time what it takes to help them sell houses. And they have to understand that right from the very beginning. When you finally get the opportunity to speak to them, that should be one of the first things you communicate with them is, look, Mr. Builder, I'm here because I'd love to have your referrals. I would love to be able to build an opportunity for us to work together, okay, to earn that opportunity. I realize, though, that I have to earn it. I realized that before you were ever going to trust me enough to help take care of your customers, I've got to help you. And so before I ever ask for a thing from you, what I'm willing to do is to put this system in your model home, or maybe in your house. I'd love to put one in your house if you have a softener. I want you to see how great our product and our service is, so that you feel more comfortable telling your customers about it, or at least telling them about me. So tell them that right from the beginning, that your goal is to help them, and then you can inquire, what can I do to help? How can I help you? Ask them what their concerns are. Ask them how you can help them. So, what do they need or want? What it comes down really simply, what it comes down to for builders, they want to be able to sell houses. They don't want the house to look like crap. And the biggest thing is they want to build that house as inexpensively as they can, and with the least amount of problems. They do not want phone calls. That's a builder's nightmare, is to get phone calls, particularly after the close. And I'll tell you what, if they get a phone call from an inspector that holds up the closing, or you put a softener in before the house closes and you get knocked because it wasn't installed properly, you get hit on an inspection, that's critical too. They need everything to run seamlessly, flawlessly. And so if you are putting this system in prior to closing, you have to make sure you are to code. You've got to be aware of what the codes are. You got to send your best installer out there and make sure that it is done picture perfect every time, because if the closing is held up because you installed your equipment improperly, or it failed on an inspection, they're never going to refer you again. Okay, and so these are critical components. They need things to run smoothly, and they want to know you're going to be there long term. Now, what I say by long-term goal, what I'm talking about that is you have to be willing. Sometimes, just walking up to that builder and having that conversation with them, it's probably not going to reap any rewards right away. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep working with them. You've got to set your goal to earn their referrals. And that, I had one builder, and I talk about this in my book. For those of you who may not be aware, I have a book called Flowing to Success that has a lot of this information in there. But there was a builder this one that I was talking about earlier, that did about 15 to 20 homes a year in my territory, and I stopped by his house. Now, the cool thing about custom builders, by the way, is they may have a couple spec homes, but mostly the homes they are building are already purchased. They're purchased before they ever break ground. So these are the builders where the homeowner has possibly bought a piece of property somewhere, and then they hired a builder to build a house on the piece of property that they bought. It's not always the case. Sometimes there are developments, there are subdivisions. Maybe the builder has bought 30 acres of property, and they're building a small development. I live in a subdivision now. There are only 22 homes in my subdivision, and this was a farm that my builder bought and built these homes here. So all of these were custom homes. They were all custom builds, and the builder, it was very, very, very involved in this home. But this is the case. There was a builder, Stan Pawlowski was his name, and I stopped by one day, and I'd been out there a lot and had already gathered information. And this, we're not going to get into this a whole lot right now, but I'd already found out what the builder drove, what his truck was like. Now, I'd only been in sales now for a couple months at this time, and I walked in, and I knew his name, knew what truck he drove. I walked in there, introduced myself, got straight to the point, said that, and said, Stan, I'd love to be able to talk to you about, earning your referrals. What can I do to, you build a lot of homes in my area, and I'd love to be able to work with you. And as he's escorting me out, he says, I appreciate that you have a job to do. And he says, but it's hard enough to keep our job sites clean without you leaving literature all over the place. And when you coming in here and talking to our workers, and he goes, I have a plumber that does softeners, and that's who I use. I'm happy with them. And so I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't leave literature all over the place. And so, wow. I mean, he was really nice about it, but he basically escorted me off the property and told me not to leave brochures or cards anymore. Man, that kind of stunk. So I'm one of those people, I don't like it when somebody else tells me I can't do something. So maybe it's just me, but I decided, okay, I'm going to get his referrals. This is my goal. I'm going to figure out a way to get this guy's referrals. Now, fortunately, what I did in this situation is I pulled building permits, and I could, and that's one of the cool things about the custom builders. A lot of times it's the homeowner's name on the building permits, and this is all part, I don't care where you are in the country, the building permits are available, part of the Freedom of Information Act. I mean, if you can tell these national or even the regional builders, all the building permits are under their name. It's going to be under the builder's name because the builder's going to pull them. It's going to be under his corporation or his office. A lot of times with the custom builds, it's the homeowner's name, and a lot of times, in fact, you'll be able to see the homeowner's current address, where they currently live, so you can contact them and mail them. And that was actually the case with Stan's homes. I was able to see the homeowners' names that were building these new homes. And I went through our records at the office, and I did this for months. I went through our records at the office, and I made sure that I looked for somebody that already had one of our pieces of equipment that was having Stan build a house. And it took me several months, but I finally found a customer that had our equipment that was having Stan build their house for them. And so I got in touch with them at their current address, at their current business. I went out and did a checkup call, and I talked to them, and I know you guys are building out in Fowlerville, and you know, I would love to get in with Stan. I would love to. And I told him what happened. I told him how much I respected Stan, how great he was, you know, how great a house he was building and everything. I said, you know, is there any chance if you guys are doing that I could put your softener in and show you how good, you know, of service I am and the follow up and stuff like that. And anyway, I ended up putting it in the system. And at the time of the sale, I put a yard sign out in front of their house. This is a house that Stan would drive by every day when he went out there. They opted out of his plumber system. They put a yard sign in, and what I told them, I told them that I'm getting a little feedback here, so I'm going to mute everybody again because there's a couple people that came on. There we go. So I told them that as long as they had that yard sign out in front of their house, they would never have to buy salt. And it was just an older couple. They didn't use much salt at all. So I told them I would always buy them salt and bring them salt as long as that yard sign was there. I'll tell you what, that guy, his name was Chet. He was out there. It snowed one time, like a lot of snow. And I know this is, you know, those of you in Texas and Florida run into this problem a lot. But this guy was out there. I drove by one day, and he was out there shoveling snow around the yard sign so that he could put the yard sign in. I mean, it was awesome. Anyway, it took me a long time. I was out there. I waved to Stan a lot. I was out there. Oh, and I had Chet and Rose were their names. They actually wrote Stan a letter saying how great we were in the installation and recommending that they use us. And it was almost a year before I got the first referral from Stan. And I still get them to this day, by the way. I haven't been in sales in years, and I think this is really telling. My cell phone number is the same as it was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and he still calls me. Despite the fact that I don't work at that company anymore, he still has my number programmed into his phone. I've introduced him to new salespeople, people that would take over his, you know, that could take over. He knows I don't work here anymore. He still calls me though, and then I get on the phone and I call the person that I'm referring. And that's how they are. That's how these builders are. They don't want to change it. He likes that my cell phone number is in his phone, programmed in. He likes it. Some do's and don'ts when it comes to builders. Don't assume that they're all looking for a kickback. And I want to tell you, that is the case with some builders, especially these custom builders. And by the way, it's one of the reasons I really, really love working with these guys, okay? they take a lot of pride in their house and in taking care of their customers. The guy that built my house, his name was Don Culver, Culver Builders. The reason I had Don build my house is because I had customers out there that had Don build 3 or 4 houses for them. So they would move every few years, and they didn't go anywhere else. They had the same builder build 2 and 3 houses. Now that's kind of unheard of. That's unusual. It's what I hear more commonly is to talk to somebody that's bought a house and they're furious with the builder. Oh, this house is crap. It drywall's cracking. It's just doing really bad. My builder, the reason I had him build is because none of the customers ever complained. They said, "Yeah, we had this problem, and Don came out and fixed it himself. He came out and he got it fixed right away." I mean, the after the sale service, the after the close service was awesome. Don is one of those guys that took a lot of pride in his houses, in taking care of his customers. Some of them, that's what you find with these custom builders is they almost treat it like an art. Now, I did give Don a referral. I did end up giving him a kickback even before he built my house. And the way I did it with Don, by the way, because Don didn't want the money himself, but what I did is just because he would just include it. I mean, it was so easy. He'd call me up and he'd go, "Hey, I need you to test water and put whatever customer in lot 12 needs." And then I would go out and do a follow-up with the customer, but Don would put in both the softener and the reverse osmosis system in every single house. He included it, and that was our top-of-the-line system. Now, Don didn't want the money. He didn't want the check. He didn't want to have to mess around with taxes at the end of the year with it. So he had 2 minor children, and I don't know, you'd have to check with your accountant to see if you can do this. We were able to do this somehow. He had 2 minor children, and I alternated writing a referral check to him. So he paid full price for the equipment, and then I wrote a referral check back to him to his minor children. I alternated it, and he put it in their college funds. He deposited those checks because they were minors. They didn't have to. They had savings accounts. But don't assume that they're all looking for a kickback. These custom builders, not all of them are. Sometimes they want to take care of their customers. They do their job because it's like an art project for them. They like building stuff, and they like happy customers. There are some builders that are what's in it for me builders. There are some that are what's in it for me. There are some though that are what's in it for my customer. You may find, and when I'm first talking to them and I'm talking to them about the referrals that we can give or the credits that we can give to them, that's something that I will kind of feel out with them. I'll say that. I'll say, some builders like to have the discounted system for themselves if they're including it in the house. But if you don't want to mess with it, then I'm willing to give that credit back to the homeowner as well, either through a builder credit to you or we can give that credit back to the homeowner. And they like that too. They like being able to help that customer. Now, what I mean by what's in it for my customer, I had one builder. This is important. I had a builder. His name is Guy Ott, and man, did he build a nice house. This guy had a reputation. He only built 5 or 6 houses a year, but they were gorgeous houses. And it took me a long time, well over a year, to finally get a referral. And I did it. I went about it much the same way I did with Stan Pulaski. I mean, really making sure that he saw me out there, stopping by, talking to him, not always trying to make the sale, taking him ice cold water, just really trying to show him that I was going to be there long term and that I was going to take care of his customers. This guy built a gorgeous house, and he finally gave me a referral. And I went out to this customer's house, and they had horrid water. I mean, just horrible water. And they had methane in the water and manganese and iron. And anyway, the system that I ended up putting in, and they wanted top of the line too. They wanted an expensive system, but the system ended up being pretty steep, like $6,000. And back then that was, that doesn't seem like a lot for a system nowadays it seems like, but back then in this area, that was a lot of equipment. And the builder, I sent him a thank you note, I already knew that he did not want, he wanted the customer to have a discount, which I did give. I had given a discount to the customer on his behalf, but it still was super expensive. But when the builder found out that that's how much that customer had paid, he was furious. I talked to him after that, and thinking that he was going to be happy that I'd taken care of his customers. He thought I'd totally screwed over his customers. And I explained it to him, and in fact, he talked to his customers after, and they explained it to him, and they were happy with the equipment, but I never got another referral from him. I mean, he was always nice to me, but I never got another referral because he thought that I'd gone in there and completely screwed over the customer. I ran into a lot of other builders, and this is something to be aware of, okay? I ran into a lot of builders that, I mean, think about these, especially these custom builders. These are people that are nickeling and diming the builder all the time. They're saying, can you change this wall around and not charge me for it? Basically, can you upgrade this and not charge me? Can you undo this and not charge me? They're watching these customers start to run out of money through the building process. And so a lot of times they think that these homeowners are not going to have, they're not going to be able to afford it. Now, you and I know that that's part of the sale. I mean, it's a constant sale. And I mean, the truth is, if they upgraded these appliances and they put faucets in there and, nice faucets and shower heads, I mean, the reality is they can't afford not to do it. But you don't always count on this builder to sell an expensive or nice quality system. They think, especially if the homeowner hasn't upgraded a lot of stuff, if they've stayed with builder grade stuff, they think that you're going to be way too expensive for that homeowner to buy. So it's good in those situations to build a relationship with the builder where they just refer you. Let me get in there and talk to the homeowner. Let me show them what we have to offer. In some instances, it's not a bad idea to have a, kind of a builder's grade model that you can offer if you have that available. We did that. My company, the company I was in sales with, we did have a little cash and carry unit that we ended up installing as the builders. Okay, so we tacked on enough to cover the installation. It was a little auto troll system, not a bad softener, but what we did is we put that in there, and it worked while the house was being built to keep the staining off the toilets and and the shower heads and all that stuff. It wasn't a bad softener, but what we did is we said, look, you put this builder's grade in, put this entry-level softener in, it's going to work for the customers. It will work. When they close on the house, we will come back out and explain this system to the customer. We'll test it. We'll make sure it's doing everything it's supposed to do. And if the customer at that time, after the close, wants to upgrade, then we will allow them to apply the purchase of this less expensive softener, the price of this less expensive softener towards an upgrade. And I did that with a lot of builders. And what it did, because these are the builders who thought that the customer could not afford a better quality system. And I can tell you, I almost in every instance upgraded it to our best system because it was $800 to put in this. Now, this was back then, and it may be a little different. Prices have gone up since I was doing this, but it was an $800 installed softener back then. And the builder thought that was all the customer was going to spend, was just on that. They were so surprised when those customers upgraded to the $2,500 system that they had. But what that allowed me to do was guarantee nobody else was getting in there. None of my competitors were getting in there. And it guaranteed that I was going to get back in front of that customer to be able to talk to it. And the builder, it worked for the builder because it was essentially what he was paying from his plumber. And, it's pretty easy to show somebody, look, your plumber, he's really good at installing and plumbing. But this is all we do. All we do is water treatment. We know how to treat this. And so if there's a problem with it, who's more likely to be able to fix it better for your customer, the plumber or the people who only do water treatment? Because plumbers, most plumbers that I've talked to, they'll do water treatment, but they don't like it. They don't know how to set them. They usually haven't read the owner's manual. They're picking it up from a plumbing supply store. They would just assume not mess with them, most of them. And so it doesn't break a plumber's heart to not have to put a softener in because it's one less thing that they get a call back from as well. Now, you got to be careful also. I worked with another builder, and she did entry-level homes, $100,000, $110,000 homes, entry-level homes. She built them up like crazy. They went up really fast in about 4 months. They were spec homes, and I got a referral. We put a softener and a reverse osmosis system in her home, and she was paying for that softener through referrals. We would give her a credit for every referral, and every sale that we got from that referral, we would give her a credit until that softener was paid for in her home. And so she gave me a lot of referrals, and I remember the first time I went out to the subdivision and said, hey, your builder gave me your name, they went off on her. They hated her. Now, she did a pretty good job on the house, but because she kept those houses inexpensive, she wouldn't let anybody change anything, nothing. So they bought the house as is. This is the blueprint. This is the way it is. So be aware of what your customers think about these builders. It doesn't mean you can't work with them, although you got to be careful about associating yourself. Do you want to be associated with the builder that everybody hates? That's kind of important too, you know. So I went out, I stopped telling people how I got their names and information on that one. I did not mention my affiliation with the builder. So you got to be aware. You can find that out in the day. I didn't have Google back then. I had to talk to people in the subdivision, had to talk to other customers, had to talk to other people out there. Nowadays, we can Google search the builder and look at the reviews. They're all over the internet. You know, you can find out what the reputation is like, whether it's a good or bad reputation with the builder. So listen to their customers, read the online reviews, and maintain as much as possible, even if you're giving a credit back to that builder, maintain price integrity, especially amongst builders, because builders do talk. They talk to each other. Maintain those price integrities. Do be available. This is just my opinion. When a builder calls or somebody like that, these are people who are not always working 9 to 5. You know, they're getting calls from their customers in the evening. And this is the nature of what we do for a living. Okay. And I get this. When I was in sales, you know, they get the people that they're using the water not 9 to 5 because they're working. So they're using their water and they're realizing something's going on or something's broken in the evenings or on the weekends. That's when they notice it. So that's when they call, and that's when they call me. And if I want to be available to them, they call my cell phone. I'm available. I answer the question for them. They like that. It's why I got so many referrals. Those customers, when they have a problem in their house, they're doing the same thing. They're calling the builder. And if the builder is a custom builder and he believes in referrals, he's probably answering as well. And then he's picking up that phone and he's calling me. So do be available to those builders that need you to be available on those off times. It will make all the difference in the world. Now, if you have protected territories, this is really important on this, okay? If you have protected territories, don't involve the builder in territory squabbles. And company I worked for, we did have that. And there were builders that were building in John's area, and then they started building in my area, and so I needed to work that out between John and I, not the builder. As far as the builder goes, if the builder was used to working with John and he liked John, then hopefully I've got a good enough relationship with John where John's going to introduce me to that builder, and he's going to say, look, Kelly's going to be better able to serve your customers. He lives in this area, he works in this area, he's out here all the time. However, if Kelly doesn't meet the expectations you've come to have from me, call me and I will come out here. Don't make that builder have to, I mean, you can try, but because some builders say, you know what, Kelly may be a great guy. He may take care of me really well, but I just assume call you, John. That's the number I have programmed in my phone, and that's who I'm going to call. And if that's the case, fine. Don't get him involved. Work it out with John where John forwards that information over to Kelly. Don't get those builders involved in territory squabbles. And do respect their time. They are busy. They're wearing a million different hats, okay? Again, I want to stress this again. Don't get taken advantage of either. Okay, if you are going to put a system in a model home or in the builder's home, make sure that you have a path to hold them accountable for referrals. And that's what we're going to talk about next when we're going to talk about here builder agreement here in just a second. And I know we said an hour to an hour and a half on this webinar. We are probably going to go pretty close to 90 minutes. This is recorded, so I understand. I appreciate everybody hanging out. I don't want to rush through some of this stuff because some of it's pretty valuable, especially when we talk about this builder agreement here. A couple other things, though, in terms of ways to get in front of some of those builders. I want to address this real quick. Builder associations, if you're going to be part of a builder association, the thing to understand, builders associations are primarily made up not by builders, but by people who want to interact or work with builders. And so this is excellent. A builders association is an excellent way to earn referrals, but you're more likely to going to come in contact with other people like yourselves that want to be associated with those builders. There are builders there, and they are fundraisers for builders groups, but don't expect it to only be builders there. And here's the thing with associations, and this goes with any association. I don't care whether it's a builders association or a realtors association or chamber of commerce or any local club or group or whatever you're doing. You have to give to get. Don't just join this thing and expect you're going to get tons of referrals. Okay, you have to participate. You've got to work at their booth, work in their booth. You've got to participate in their events and their fundraisers and in the community. It's not going to do any good just to have. Don't give them any money if you're not going to give your time to and your energy. The money is not what's most valuable. It's easy for them to get people to give money to them. It's the time, it's the energy, it's the effort, it's getting out there and getting involved, going to their meetings. If you're going to be part of their association, be part of their association. Things like golf outings. Golf outings are fun and they're good and they're, you can get out there and kind of communicate and talk to them and everything. But if you're a salesperson, I mean, golf outings, they always want you to sponsor your golf outings, right? Sponsor a hole, and it can be $100 a person on this. If you're going to sponsor a golf outing or you're going to play with some builders, I think it's important to sit down and think, what am I going to get out of this? I'm going to give them $400 and I'm going to invite 3 builders to come play on my team. What are you hoping to get out of that? What value is going to come out of spending that time? You need to set some goals, and on what you want to accomplish during that time. And I think it doesn't hurt to sponsor a hole and to be visible, but don't expect miracles from this. Now you see this picture here, this particular Culligan dealer, it looks like they were giving bottled water out, and that's good. On a hot day, they're out there golfing, it's humid, they're going to grab that water and they're going to drink it. That's good, but there really needs to be somebody standing there as well, talking to them, giving them, there needs to be somebody doing more than just handing out water there. Newsletters I like. Okay, a lot of times these associations or the builders associations will have a newsletter that goes out. Maybe look at sponsoring the newsletter. And newsletters, by the way, also in development. If you can get into a newsletter in a development, especially in these gated communities, okay, like down in Florida, or there's a lot of gated communities down in some states. If you can write not a sales article, sometimes the newsletters in these communities, they don't want advertisement. They don't take advertisement. It is a newsletter, not an advertising brochure. So write an informational piece. Write something that is not salesy. Write something on chlorine. Write something on, what's the difference between distilled water and reverse osmosis water. Write something informational. For more information, call us. Become a resource for them. Now, sometimes the builders associations, they will have newsletters, and you can sponsor it. Put an advertisement in there. In fact, a lot of times they'll sell them. That does get in front of the builders. A lot of them are digital, so you can put links in it to other resources. So definitely look into the newsletters. And their customers, like I already mentioned, get in front of their customers and make sure that their customers, they're also your customers. When you sell one to a builder that you want to talk to, have your customer, this is worth it. I don't know, maybe not the company, maybe the company doesn't do this necessarily, but like I said, that builder, when I wanted to get that relationship with Stan Pulaski, I paid for salt out of my pocket. I took a yard sign out there and I put it in front of his house and I told him he would never have to pay for salt. I bought that salt for him and I took it out and delivered it for him. Didn't happen often, but I did that. It was worth it. If you get a customer out there, and like I said, I asked Chet and Rose, they wrote Stan a letter for me. They wrote it and mailed it to him. I asked them that. If you if you sell a system, wow that customer with service and ask them if they'll talk to your builder, talk to the builder about it. Let them or a salesperson. Let's say it's in a development where there's a salesperson. Ask them if they'll go back and talk to their salesperson and tell them how great you are. You know, and you got to be great in order to get them to do that. But ask them to speak on your behalf for you. Okay, and one of the big things is just be seen. Now I know some of you are driving your own vehicles. I was pretty fortunate in my territory. I had a company vehicle. It was logoed up, and I drove around. So they recognized my car. They knew where it was. They saw it. If you don't have a company vehicle, I'm going to suggest that you invest in some door magnets or something, or see if your company will go in half with you on that. Get you, even if you're not driving a company vehicle, get some magnets out there. And put them on your car so that they recognize your car. They know who you are. They will see you out there. Make sure that they see you, because they want to do business with somebody who's local, somebody who's out there a lot, who's going to be there. All right, let's talk about the sample builder agreement here, and I have one here. And by the way, this is. Can you guys see that Word doc there? Okay. All right, let's move up to the top of the page up. There we go. Okay, so basically, can you guys can see this Word doc, right? Somebody respond? Okay, good. All right. So I'm not going to go through and necessarily read this all the way, but I wanted to explain to you how this worked. This sample agreement, all of you that are on this call are members of, because this is a member exclusive, so the only way to watch this webinar is to be a member of Moti-Vitality.com. The sample agreement, this builder agreement is on the tools section of Moti-Vitality.com. It belongs to you now. You can download it, you can modify it, you can do whatever you want with it. If you have a question as you're going through it and you're reading it, please give me a call or shoot me an email and I can give you some feedback or advice. This is just a generic agreement that can be modified to fit your needs in any way possible. But this is basically the way I set up almost all of my agreements, whether we put a system in a home or whether we put it in a model home, so whether it was in the builder's house or a model home, you can modify it, but it's critical that you have some form of an agreement beyond a handshake with the builder. And because people get busy too, okay, but this protects you and you have something of value to give them. It protects you to make sure that you're not putting out this, couple $1,000 piece of equipment in their house for free and not getting anything back from it. So basically, in a nutshell, what I started doing is let's say I wanted to put a softener in the builder's home, their home. They don't have a softener, or maybe their softener was old or broken, and I wanted to put it in their home, their personal home. What I would do is I would rent it to them. Okay, so we would put this on a rental agreement. Okay. And on the rental agreement, usually there's a place for special conditions. On the place for special conditions, I would say see attached builder agreement. And that would go in their file. They would sign both the rental agreement and the builder agreement that specified the terms of this rental agreement. So what the rental agreement, it would be written up exactly the way a normal rental agreement would be. So let's say, hypothetically, it's $50 a month rent on this piece of equipment, okay, $50 a month. I would put this equipment in their house for free. And then I would say, for every referral that you give us, we will apply 10%, I'm just throwing 10% out, we'll apply 10% to a credit at the office. So we'll keep a credit at the office. So let's say it's a $2,000 piece of equipment, okay? And so we put this thing in, and we do not charge them rent. We're not charging them rent for the first 3 months. We're going to give them 3 months rent free on this one. This is the way I would do it. So it gives them 3 months to give us that first referral. They give us a referral. We apply $200. We put $200 credit towards it. Now that covers their rent. We start covering their rent out of that. So they've got 4 more months at that point to give us another referral, because $50 a month in rent times 4 is $200. So they've got $200 in there. So we are basically getting that rent. Now, as long as we have referrals and we're getting referrals from them and we're building this credit up, as long as we have that at the office, they are not getting charged rent. Okay, they're not getting, we're not charging them rent. We're not sending them an invoice, or we are sending them an invoice, but we're saying it's paid for. You know, however we want to track it. I mean, sometimes that's a good idea, is to send them an invoice because it reminds them that it's there. But this is paid by such and such referral. Now, if you go, though, if you put the system in their house and you go 6 months without getting a referral, now you start calling them and say, hey, you know, the agreement said that you were going to pay rent if we didn't get the referrals. We haven't gotten a referral in 6 months, and so, you know, we'll maybe give you 1 more month, but, or, I mean, depending on the stickler, maybe they're not returning the calls. Whatever, they have signed this rental agreement. Now you start sending them rent invoices, start charging them rent. It's amazing when they get an invoice and start getting charged money, they are either going to call you back and say, oh man, I'm sorry, can I have, let's try this again. I've got all these 3 houses coming up here. Here's 3 referrals I'm giving you. Let's see if we can close these. Or they're going to say, you know, this isn't working out. Maybe come get your equipment. Or they might just say, you know what, it's just easier if I go on and rent this. Let me just go on and keep renting the system. Maybe they pay the bill. Maybe they like it and they start paying the bill. But regardless, setting it up on a rental agreement, it means that you are not going to lose your equipment. It means that they are held accountable for those referrals, and it gives you a reason to be back in contact with that builder. Okay. Now, what I did on this one, you're going to see this on this builder agreement here. What I did was I applied 100% of what they got towards in referrals and rent. I mean, it did go towards covering the rent payment on this, but it also kept track of it. And what I said for them was, in this particular builder agreement, I think we wrote it up to put it in a model home in one of their spec houses. Yeah, in the model home. Okay, so we agreed to put it in on consignment, which means we did it at no cost, and they paid for it there based on the referrals. But we applied a credit every time they gave us a referral and we got a sale out of it. We applied a credit towards their account, and once that system was paid for, once they had enough credit to cover that system entirely, we gave it to them. So they were then allowed to sell it with the model home, because eventually those model homes do get sold. So they were allowed to sell that system. It belonged to them now. It worked out really well. They got this free, really top of the line, high quality softener that they could now include in the cost of this house and recoup. Not only did they get the referral, they got a free softener, but now they can actually sell it, you know, raise the price to include the softener in the house and get that as well for that. So it doesn't have to be, this rental agreement covers a lot of stuff. It covers what happens after the system is paid for, how much they got back. In this particular instance, we gave $75. After that system was paid for, we gave $75. Now, this particular builder, I wrote this agreement for a builder that had several different subdivisions, and we tried it in one subdivision, and their system was paid for that model house almost within a month and a half, within 2 months it was paid for. And we actually duplicated this exact program, and this was a regional builder that we did this with. We duplicated this program for all of their developments all over the area. So it works really well to try it as a sample. They liked the way it worked so well that they continued it on. Like I said, that is in a nutshell what we did to build those, to hold them accountable and make sure that that continued on. I want to open it up to questions here. So if you have a question, I want to take just a couple minutes here and ask any questions or answer any questions that you may have. If you have a question, either type it in to the chat box or unmute yourself and feel free to hop in and ask a question. Don't be shy. Feel free to hop in and ask a question or a comment.
Kelly, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The working on a protected territory, earlier in the slideshow, you had October 21st, I think?
It is 21st. I thought I changed it on this, but apparently I did not hit save.
Okay.
Good catch. That is great. This should be October 21, not 25. Okay. Okay. How do we access the recording of this session? We will send out, and first off, this will be it will be a member exclusive, so you will have to be signed in. I will put this in the previous member exclusive webinar section of Moti-Vitality.com. I have to download it and convert it, so give me a couple days. When I do that, or after it is up, we will send out an email to all of you with the link directly to that page. You will have to be logged in to view it, but you will be able to view it as often as you'd like at that point. Okay, that was somebody had asked that question privately there. So any other questions? Okay, please join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the modular education program for WQA on tomorrow's MV Pro call, answering your questions there. Those of you down in Ohio, we will see you next week at the Ohio Water Quality Association. And the rest of you, please let us know if there's any questions or anything we can do for you. I'm truly honored to be able to serve you in this way. And so thank you very much for joining us. Everybody have an awesome, awesome day. And we'll talk to you very soon. So